Morning, everyone.
Good morning,
Rabbi.
We're learning Mishnah Yoma, Perek Gimel, Chapter 3, Mishnah Hey, Mishnah 5. Ketores Shal Shachar. This Mishnah is really discussing the laws of a ketores, of the incense that's burned, that apply all year round. Ketores Shal Shachar, the morning offering of the incense, because the incense was offered twice a day. In the morning with the carbon tamid shal shachar, with the morning daily sacrifice, and in the afternoon the carbon tamid shal barabayim, with the daily afternoon sacrifice. So ketores shal shachar, the morning ketores haisa kreva was offered bein dam le'ivarim, between the blood and the limbs. So the Mishnah is saying that the ketores was offered between the zrikas hadam, the throwing of the blood onto the walls of the altar of the mizbeach, and the burning of the limbs. That's how the words read. So that would mean that the order of things are the throwing of the blood, the offering of the ketores, and then the burning of the limbs. But actually, in a previous Mishnah, we learned a little differently, and that was that actually, in between the one second, you had the blood of the tamid, you had the, make sure I get this right, the order actually went that he threw the blood, offered the ketores, took care of the menorah, and then offered the limbs. So the Mishnah is leaving out the fact that the Mishnah just says that the ketores was between the blood and the limbs. Actually, the ketores was after the blood, but wasn't immediately followed by the limbs. It was followed by the cleaning of the menorah and then by the limbs. So the Bartanura explains that that's true. There was another step in between, not mentioned in the Mishnah. But the point of the Mishnah is to bring out that the throwing of the blood and the burning of the limbs did not follow one another. That's the point the Mishnah is trying to bring out. That although those are two parts of the same, they're both parts of the tamid carbon, of the tamid sacrifice. Nonetheless, they didn't follow one another. There was something interrupting in between. The Mishnah mentions the ketores interrupted in between, but the truth is it wasn't just the ketores that interrupted in between. It was the ketores and the cleaning of the menorah. Shalbein Rabayim, and the incense burned in the afternoon. That was between the limbs and the libations. What this means is that in the afternoon, after the limbs were burnt on the altar, that is when the ketores was offered. Then it was followed by the nesachim. The nesachim literally means the libations, which we would typically translate to mean the pouring of the wine. But actually, there are times where the word nesachim is not just going on the wine libation that goes along with the carbon, it's also going on the mincha, on the meal offering that's offered with the carbon. Because we learned previously that the carbon tamid, whether it's in the morning or it's in the afternoon, was accompanied by a meal offering. That's flour and oil mixed together, and a part of it is taken off and then thrown onto the fire of the altar, together with the wine that was poured on the altar. So when it says here in the Mishnah, Shalbein Rabayim, the incense in the afternoon, the nesachim was between the limbs and the nesachim, which really means it's different in the morning, right? Because in the morning it was offered before the limbs were burned. In the afternoon it was offered after the limbs were burned. But it means, that's the difference between the afternoon and the morning. And the Mishnah says it was after the limbs were burned, but before the nesachim were taken care of, before the mincha was offered, before the wine was poured. Then the Mishnah continues going back to the Kohen Gadol immersing in the mikveh. Like Kohen Gadol zaken istinis. The Kohen Gadol was elderly or he was very delicate, so he really had a hard time with the cold mikveh water. It was cold. It was very hard on him. Mechamin loichamin, we warm up for him hot water, not on Yom Kippur, of course. Mm-hmm. On before Yom Kippur, you can't warm up water on Yom Kippur. That would be cooking. That can't not be be done on Shabbos or on Yom Kippur. Mm-hmm. So they warm up mechamin loichamin. they warm up hot water for him before Yom Kippur. And then on Yom Kippur, they can pour it into the cold water. In order to take out the chill. So it's not like you're by pouring all that hot water into the mikveh, you're cooking up the you're cooking up the mikveh water. It's not going to be hot enough or that much to be able to do so. So therefore, there's no problem of cooking on by putting the hot water into the cold water. And the whole point is that you want to go ahead and take out some of the chill so that it should be more comfortable for the Kohen Gadol who's immersing. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you, Rabbi.